About how I ended up getting from being overweight to not being overweight.
Right.
So I used to ride motorcycles, and I was really overweight. And the only reason I knew I was the weight I was because I was in the hospital, and the bed had a scale. So my wife was like, "It says 326 pounds," and I was like, "Oh man." But anyways,
wow.
So I used to ride motorcycles, and I was riding in the winter, and I ended up getting stuck somewhere that I thought was gonna not take that long, and I ended up having to ride home at night, and it was just cold, and I got pneumonia. So when I got pneumonia, it didn't because I was overweight. It was getting worse. It wasn't getting better, and then I got basically a really bad chest cavity infection, and I couldn't breathe. And so because I couldn't breathe, my brain wasn't getting oxygen, and I was like stumbling around. My wife had to take me to the emergency room, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They couldn't figure out like what was causing the infection.
How old were you at this time?
I was, I think, probably 33, 34. And yeah, go ahead.
So that's only 6 years ago.
Yeah. Wow. I think I've been on the healthy train like 7 years maybe. So maybe like 33.
Yeah.
Like my daughter, she was. So
because
she's almost 8 because I was in there for a while. So,
so she couldn't recognize you because you lost weight.
I lost 60 pounds in the hospital
just from being sick, though.
Just from being sick and being in there for a while, and I had actually gotten disuse muscular atrophy from being in the bed and being so overweight. So it was really bad, dude. My wife had to like wipe my butt and like get me out of the chairs and help me sit up, and it was really bad. But anyways, so they came in and told my wife like, "Hey, we can't. He's gonna die. He's gonna die. So, like, make sure you guys have everything like in order." They sent the chaplain in to come pray for me, and there just happened to be a specialist in the hospital that day, and they were like, "Hey, go check on that patient, me," and he figured it out right away.
Which was
that I had
the pneumonia.
Well, they knew I had pneumonia, but that I had it was called I can't even remember. It was some kind of infection, right, that required a special surgery. So they took me in. They said, "You have to have an emergency surgery right away," right? By this point, I could breathe like shallow, like, right, because I couldn't take a breath because my chest was so full of fluid.
Right.
So they put me no food or water for 24 hours because I had to get ready for the surgery. And then they took my blood for the day of the surgery, and they were like, "Oh, you're septic, so you need a blood transfusion."
Jeez.
So I had to go another day, and by then I was like, "Dude, I feel like I was like delirious." But the thing I remember about that time was agony. I was just in agony in my body.
Were you going to church at this time?
Yeah, I was a Christian.
You were a Christian at this time.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I was just in agony. I mean, so many people from the church came and visited me, but like, I didn't even know they had come. Right. So I just remember it as a time of agony in my life, just being in pain, right? And then the next day went, I had blood transfusion. My blood was good. They did my surgery. And the first thing I remember, and this is like the only way I could describe it, right? When I came out of surgery, I felt like I was drinking a cold glass of water when I breathed. Like it was quenching thirst. It felt so good to breathe. And then, they broke my ribs. They had to break my ribs to get in and do the surgery. And then I had some gravity tubes in to get the last of the fluid out. But it was like a brutal time of my life. I wanted to get out of the hospital. I got out as soon as I could, and my wife had to take care of me for another while, but brutal.
What were you thinking about as you're struggling to breathe? You're 300 pounds, you're sick, you're on the brink of death, possibly.
So in those moments, like before the surgery and the like time I was in the hospital, I couldn't really think. My mind was literally just delirious. I was not in the right state of mind. But after I got out of surgery and I started to get better and more coherent, I was like, I feel like I'm in prison here. I gotta get out of here, right? And the doctor was like, well, you have to walk a little bit to be able to get out. And I was trying to make myself walk, and I had to do physical therapy because I had been, late. My legs weren't working. My arms weren't working.
For how long were you?
It wasn't even that long. It was like a few weeks. Like, I think it was like 6 weeks or something. But in that amount of time, just being
sedentary.
Yeah.
You became, they call it
atrophied.
Atrophied.
Yeah. My body was atrophied. So, I ended up getting out, and my little girl, she was like, who are you, So, when I got out, I was like 260 pounds.
Okay.
And it was because I was forced to just, I couldn't eat, but they would try to make me eat. And anything I did eat was hospital food and restricted diet. They put me on a restricted diet. So,
but your body was just like, nah, I don't want to eat.
I felt like I didn't want to eat. And at this point, I was really I hated food. I just hated, because I knew in my heart, that's what caused this. If I hadn't been so overweight and so unhealthy, I would have survived a motorcycle ride in the cold better. Yeah. But I was such an unhealthy person. So,
was there a point where you had a discussion with yourself about, maybe there's some changes that have to be made?
Yeah, for sure. I was just so right when I got out of the hospital, I was starting to get mad at God. I was starting to get mad at my situation because I literally have scar tissue in my lungs now, so I couldn't really take deep breaths. I had a really soft voice, I couldn't talk strong. And my wife, she'd be like, well, maybe you might want to try playing drums again. No, I don't want to play drums anymore. Maybe you want to ride the exercise bike. No, I don't want to. I was just depressed, miserable, I can't, I'm not the same person anymore. Right. And I think that was the point, right? God's yeah, I don't want you to be the same person anymore.
Yeah.
But to my wife's credit, she was right. I started getting on the exercise bike a little bit in the morning, and it fixed my lung, my passive soft voice, fixed it right away. My body got stronger right away. I was able to get up and walk around right away. So
now, were you doing jiu-jitsu? Had you even done jiu-jitsu at this point yet?
No.
So when did you start getting? Well, first of all, what was the first thing that you did to get yourself to going in the direction of better health? What did you do? What was the first thing you did?
So I said, okay, my weight went down when I was in the hospital. I'm gonna mimic the food that I ate in the hospital. I'll just mimic it at home.
So you figured out that, hey, eating less is
right
causing me to lose weight.
Right. Because it wasn't different food. It was just smaller quantities of food.
Okay.
Right. So I was let me copy what I was eating in the hospital while I'm at home, because I know that's safe.
Okay.
Right. And then I would just ride the exercise bike a little bit in the morning, because that was literally all I could do, just not being an athletic person. And, these little changes over time just made a difference. I think that was one of the things that kind of tripped me up in the past, right? Because I've been on so many diets. I was overweight my whole life, right? So I tried everything, and I would just get to the point where I was miserable with myself, and I'd say, that's it, I'm making a change, no more. And I would do a complete 180, and that would last for about 2 weeks or a week or whatever, and then I was right back where I was. It's just impossible to change everything about myself at once.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. Sometimes my wife would be like, "You're just impulsive. You're trying to make all these changes at one time, and it's you're just falling off. It's a short-lived."
It's hard. Yeah. It's hard to do. So over time, things have changed, little by little, and just sort of refining my nutrition and adding more athletic activity, physical activity to my lifestyle. And the reason I got into jiu-jitsu was actually because my son was in jiu-jitsu first.